Securing a submission in the octagon is difficult, requiring physical and mental prowess. It entails wearing down your opponent and executing the right hold at the right moment. Despite the challenges, the payoff is worth it. Submissions are earned through skill and strategy rather than luck. This video will show some of the most impressive submissions in UFC history. We'll start with Julian Marquez's winning hold on Maki Pitolo.
By submission, due to an anaconda choke, Julian the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez.
Coming back after a 3-year leave of absence, Julian Marquez really put his foot down on the UFC by pulling off a victory against the odds against Maki Pitolo. Their 2021 match went to 3 rounds, with Pitolo getting an early burst of aggression against Marquez. Indeed, the Hawaiian controlled the match for a long while until Marquez first got him into a guillotine choke. After trying another guillotine choke in the second round, Marquez was able to really turn the tide of the match in round 3. This shows that even if a hold doesn't get you a tap out, it's an investment in the future of the match. Pitolo tried to weather the storm here, but Marquez really gave him a pounding before getting Pitolo into a choke for the last time, bringing the match to a close. Sometimes victory in the octagon is about who can go the longest, and although Marquez looked weak at the beginning of the match, he could chip away at Pitolo's stamina. That's the kind of foresight and ability that wins you matches. Up next, we have Khamzat Chimaev's early win against Li Jinliang.
16 seconds, round number 1. We have your winner, Khamzat Chimaev!
Chimaev was unbeaten in his pro career at the time of this match. The guy is still unbeaten today. Looking at matches like these gives you a good sense of how the guy can maintain a spotless win-loss record with 12 pro matches behind him. Borz took early control of the match in this welterweight bout by quickly taking down Jinliang. There's a lot of value to be had in this kind of shock and awe aggression, and Chimaev really proved it that night. Holding his own and keeping up the pressure, Jinliang was on the ropes halfway through the first round. Eventually, the Chechen Wolf locked his prey in the rear naked choke. The match ended by technical submission at just 3 minutes and 16 seconds into the first round. This bout contrasts with the one we looked at before. You'd think submissions are a slow and steady way to win the race, but that can be different. Khamzat is so deadly because you'd hardly know what was going on before the guy whittled you down and had you tapping out. We'll now look at another late game turnaround, this time from Clay Guida. Clay is a battle-worn veteran of the octagon, having fought many matches for the UFC and spending stints at other MMA promotions. That's why we hope that Leonardo Santos didn't think that he could beat Guida just because he was dominating in the early going of the match. If he had that misconception, Guida didn't take long to put it to rest. Santos got a body kick that rattled Guida enough that Santos could lock him into a flurry of attacks. Unfortunately, this took up a lot of Santos's energy too early, giving Guida a chance to recover and hold the advantage over the exhausted Santos. The Carpenter did his thing and walloped Santos, ending the first round on top. With a sense of urgency, Guida quickly resumed his attack as soon as the second round began. He swiftly took down his opponent and unleashed a barrage of knee strikes before executing a decisive rear naked choke, ending the match in under a minute and a half of round 2. Clay Guida truly demonstrated his skill and dominance in the octagon. From there, we'll move on to Islam Makhachev's submission of Drew Dober. Islam added a lot of fighters to his undefeated streak, and Drew Dober is just one of them. That's not to say that Dober didn't hold out for as long as he could, and he must have been sure that he'd be the one to break the streak, but he fell short of pulling it off. We saw the match's conclusion just a minute into the first round, with Islam taking Dober down and developing his position on the mat with 90 seconds to go. Dober couldn't break out of their stalemate on the mat and nearly lost to an armbar from Makhachev before being saved by the bell. Round 2 played out similarly to the first round, with Makhachev having smelled blood from near submission at the end of the first round. Dober managed to hold on through the round once again. The match ticked into round 3 with no end in sight. The third time's the charm though, as Islam managed to take Dober down again and held him there. Makhachev finally got the tap and walked away victorious in his final attempt at an armbar. Hey, Dober lasted a lot longer than some of Islam's opponents. Next, we have Vicente Luque's decisive win over Michael Chiesa. At the time, Luque was angling for a shot at the welterweight championship belt, building quite a case for himself. He was on a hot streak of 3 consecutive wins, and he could add Chiesa to the tally with little work. Ring work is one thing we have yet to see in the matches. You can't get hit if your opponent can't catch you, which was exactly the problem Chiesa faced if he had to chase Luque around the octagon. But he eventually caught and trapped Luque on the mat, trying to get a choke on the slippery eel. But remember, this segment is about Luque's win, not Chiesa's. And sure enough, Luque managed to break the hold and counter it with a Darce choke of his own. All that running around must have burnt Chiesa out, as he wound up tapping out and handing Luque a victory at 3 minutes and 25 seconds into the first round. Vicente Luque is inefficient and could have used more of the audience's time. Now let's look at an example from the women's division, as we've got to give a shout to Amanda Nunes. It would be wrong for a list like this not to feature Amanda, a dominant force in women's MMA. A number of her submission wins could be featured here, but we're going with the one she got on Megan Anderson. Like Vicente Luque's win over Michael Chiesa, this match was over before you knew it. The co-main event of UFC 259 got off to an even start before Nunes rocked Anderson with a right hand. To the surprise of everyone besides Amanda, this was the beginning of the bout's end. She took Megan down to the ground and even got her in her clutches. Once she managed to lock Anderson into the armbar, the match was over. All this played out in just 2 minutes and 3 seconds. Nunes' ability to be in and out before a fan can finish their soda makes her a terror in the women's division. It's rarely a good idea to bet against her. Now we have a fight for the ages between Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo. This encounter was a repeat of a bout in December 2020 that ended in a draw, and both fighters had a score to settle. It also happened that the world flyweight title was on the line in this fight, so the stakes were sky high. Winning a match with so much to lose is satisfying on a completely different level, which made Moreno's triumph over Figueiredo even more impressive. Moreno set the pace of the match from the start, with a hard-hitting offense that caught Figueiredo completely off guard. But this wasn't one of those open and shut matches, as the match wound through 3 rounds of back and forth between the two super determined fighters. Figueiredo recovered from the initial offense from Moreno and took him down to the mat in the second round, but Moreno managed to escape that situation unscathed. For the latter chunk of the round, Moreno had Figueiredo under his control on the mat. Round 3 saw the two exchanging strikes more than grappling, but Moreno eventually managed to take Figueiredo downtown. The element of surprise allowed Moreno to trap his opponent in a near-naked choke, and he finally got him to tap out. That made Moreno the rivalry winner, the world flyweight champion, and the first Mexican native to win a UFC title. We'd call that a happy ending. And finally, we have another inspiring story for you all: the victory of Anthony Hernandez of Rodolfo Vieira. We've seen one fighter in today's video who remains undefeated and another whose long streak was broken at last. But this was one match in which an undefeated streak was shattered, as the black belt hunter suffered the first of his 2 losses to date. As the match got underway, Vieira quickly proved why he's been unbeaten until that point. 20 seconds into the match, Vieira had Hernandez on the ground and in his control, with the challenger trying to regain some control over the situation. Eventually, the two found their way back onto their feet, but Vieira wasn't done putting the heat on his opponent. But eventually, Hernandez managed to turn the tide and had the Titan heading for a technical knockout before the bell saved him. Hernandez didn't let the round break stop his momentum, picking things up where they'd left off. By now, Vieira was reaching the end of his rope and struggling to hold on, and the audience started to realize that they were about to witness history. That history came 1 minute and 53 seconds into the second round, as Hernandez sent Vieira to the ground and wrapped up the match with a guillotine choke. The streak was broken. In the middleweight division learned they had to watch out for this guy. That's it for today's video. What's your favorite UFC submission wins? Did your favorites get left off the list? Let us know in the comment section below. And remember to like, share, and subscribe.